Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of the SERMAPod. This is the podcast for the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Alliance. I am the founder and CEO of SERMA, Rich Lenkov. I'm also the host of the SERMAPod. And today we're talking to one of our rising superstar members from SERMA. From time to time, we like to highlight what our members are doing and educate everyone else as to what opportunities there are out there in the sports and entertainment industry, especially for young up-and-coming individuals like our guest today. Remy Mastey, welcome to the SERMAPod.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's an honor to be here.
So Remy, you are a senior, correct, at Arizona State University?
Yep, correct.
And you're at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication.
Yep.
You also a sports reporter, have been for some time. Kind of give our listeners and our viewers some background as to what you've done while you've been also pursuing your degree at that great institution, and also what your current and newest title is.
Yeah. So obviously I started a few years ago when COVID came around. I'm from New York and traveled all the way to Arizona to pursue my sports career. And early on, I covered smaller sports for ASU, such as like gymnastics, swim and dive, softball for like my student newspaper, which I really enjoyed. It was a great experience, but I've always knew I wanted to cover hockey eventually. So last summer, I interned at NHL.com as an editorial intern, which was an amazing experience for me. And this past year, I worked at Cronkite News, where I mainly covered the Arizona Coyotes. So I got a lot of a hands-on hockey experience this past year. And now I'm the managing editor for the Hockey News team site for the Coyotes. And I just started that last week. So it's been great so far.
So let's make sure everyone understands. That's the Hockey News, which is like the authoritative hockey information. I started reading the Hockey News when I was probably a kid, 10 or 12, growing up in Montreal. And it blows my mind that you are the, Coyotes beat reporter, so to speak, for that institution. I mean, the Hockey News, again, dates back, I don't know how long it's been around. At least, it seems like at least 40 years. That was the place to go, still is. But back in the day, when you would actually get the magazine, get the newspaper, that was the place to go for all things hockey. So that's a big accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You grew up like I did you grew up in New York, but I know your dad, and your dad and I grew up together in Montreal. Hockey is, to say it's a religion in Montreal is probably an understatement. So you probably attribute some of your love of hockey to your dad, but tell us about your experience growing up with hockey and sort of how you got that bug early on to cover that sport.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, my dad grew up in Montreal, a diehard Canadiens fan, so he just brought that on to his children. Me and my brother loved the Canadiens growing up. I almost watched, I would say, almost every single game since I was 7 years old. So I just always have loved hockey all my life. And I started to get into journalism when I was in high school. And obviously, like I said before, I knew I wanted to get into hockey. So once I got to Cronkite, I started pursuing that.
I remember you grew up out east, you grew up in New York, also kind of a hotbed of hockey, very devoted fans to the Islanders, to the Rangers. You're now covering hockey in Phoenix, right? Which is not as well known, let's say that, a hockey market as the ones we've talked about, and certainly has its challenges, right? The team is currently perhaps looking at places to move as they deal with challenges, which they've dealt with for maybe as long as they've been located in Phoenix. They've had challenges with the arena, with attendance, so they might be moving here shortly. Tell us about the difference in covering hockey in places like Montreal, New York, Chicago, where I am, Detroit, which are institutional hotbeds of hockey, versus a market like Phoenix, where it hasn't quite caught on to the same extent, although they've had some success and certainly have some real success stories when it comes to individuals like Austin Matthews, Shane Doan, etc. So talk to us about the difference in those kind of markets.
Yeah, well, I've never covered hockey in a bigger market like New York and Montreal, so I can't speak for that, but I could speak for covering in Arizona. There are really not that many reporters. Like I guess like you could see one covering like a bigger in a bigger market, you see all these reporters like scrambling in the locker room. For the Coyotes, there are maybe three or four regular reporters that come. During the practices, there are virtually no reporters. So you get a lot of, I guess, one-on-one time with the players, and I guess you're able to connect more, which I kind of like about these smaller markets. But hockey is definitely growing in Arizona, but unfortunately they have some complication with their stadium. So hopefully it could continue to stay in Arizona long term.
Remy, we're looking at a Stanley Cup final. It's now 1-0 in favor of the Knights. We're going into game two. We're looking at two markets that are also relatively upstart markets. You know, Florida a little longer, Vegas only about 5 or 6 years old. Neither of which have won a Stanley Cup before. It's a little heartbreaking to me to know that we will have a Stanley Cup champion for the first time in one of those cities, yet we haven't had a Stanley Cup champion in any Canadian city since our beloved Canadians last won in 1993, a series I remember very well against Wayne Gretzky and the Kings. What's your take on the current series, and also on the idea that the NHL really is expanding and doing well in that these will represent the first championships in either one of these relatively new cities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for the NHL to have a Vegas versus Florida finals because I guess their fan bases are still growing. Obviously, Vegas has only been in the league for a few years, and the Panthers, they have kind of struggled with attendance, I guess, like throughout their whole entire existence. So having those two in the finals, I think is huge for the NHL. I'm sure the commissioner loves it. And also, there are two great teams, obviously. So it's going to be a heck of a series. But just to have those two markets just shows the growth of hockey in the United States, and specifically in the South and the West, which is pretty cool.
Remy, again, we've talked about this a little bit, but you've accomplished a lot in a short time. Again, you're one of only a few beat reporters or managing editors for the hockey news in the NHL. There's only so many teams, right? So that's accomplished a lot. You're only a senior still in college. Do you have any? Are there any like obstacles that you've seen that you could share as someone in your profession doing it at such a young age? Do you have any reservations from the team, from the coach, from players in disclosing information to you or dealing with you, given how young you are and how early you are in your career?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit difficult as a younger reporter to really get in there. I guess get the PR people's trust in a way. But I feel like I've covered through my year covering the team, I think they've gotten more comfortable with me. But also as a young reporter, it's a little bit intimidating at first to go up to these NHL players, these players that I've like watched almost all my life, to go up to them and interview them. It was a little bit intimidating at first, but I feel like I've gotten over that intimidating factor, and I've gotten more used to it, which is good.
Last question here on the SERMAPod, Remy. We'll let you go. We appreciate your time. We've got a lot of students who are members of our organization, SERMA, many of whom are in university like yourself, college, or also many in graduate school like law school. A lot of them are interested in pursuing careers in sports and entertainment, in management, agency, in the law. What advice would you give to someone who's still getting their career underway in accomplishing things that you've managed to accomplish already in your short time?
Yeah, I would just tell them pursue your dreams. I know it sounds difficult to start a career in the sports industry, but if you really put your mind to it and work hard, you could really accomplish anything. So if you want to pursue it and just work hard.
That's Remy Mastey from Arizona State University, and also the managing editor for the Arizona Coyotes team site for The Hockey News. Remy, where can people read your journalism and find more information about you?
Yeah, you could look up the hockey news. They have all their team sites there. So if you click on the Arizona Coyotes site, that'll be there. And my Twitter is at Mastey Remy, so you could find all my articles there. I'm posting it there too.
Remy, thanks so much. And what's your call for the Stanley Cup final?
Originally I had Florida in 5 or 6. So, but now I'm kind of rethinking it, but I'm going to stick to my prediction. I think Florida in 6.
I bet if we asked your dad, he would know which team has more of a Habs connection. I think the answer is Vegas, because there's a bunch of Habs on there, but it could be, we got to follow up with Remy Mastey, noted New York baker and all Canadians aficionado, because, we don't have a team right now in the final, but I always like to root for the team that has the greatest Hab connection. So I'm going to say it's the Knights, but we're going to check with your dad and we'll follow up on that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rich.